In the seemingly peaceful neighborhood of Gilbert, an unexpected tragedy unveiled the dark secrets of a mysterious life. Amidst what appeared to be innocent relationships, a hidden affair slowly transformed into a nightmare. As jealousy took hold, who could have imagined that a dark secret would lead to a chilling death? Step into this haunting story, where a dangerous love affair shook an entire community, leaving behind an indelible fear. Let us unveil the dark curtain of this crime. In a peaceful neighborhood in Gilbert, Arizona, the Fletcher family was known as the epitome of a happy, perfect family. The wife, Carenza Fletcher, 35 years old, and in the prime of her middle age, was a dedicated homemaker. She was exceptionally warm, friendly, and capable, with an uncanny ability to remember everyone's birthday. The community regarded Carenza as the heart of the neighborhood, as she had a special talent for bringing people together, frequently organizing block parties and actively volunteering at her children's school. Carenza lived happily with her husband, Edric, a model insurance agent, and their two energetic teenage children. Carenza's life appeared as perfect as a picture, drawing envy from those who looked upon it. In March 2017, just before the day she would leave her life behind, neighbors vividly remembered the familiar image of Carenza, who enjoyed her peaceful life as she always had. She often drove her children to school in her blue Chevrolet, stopping by Highlands Coffee for a caramel macchiato on the way. She was also active in visiting the local church, where she helped coordinate charity activities, donated books, collected clothes for poor children, and sold snacks to raise funds. The image of Carenza as a model woman, seemingly too perfect, left everyone unable to believe the darker side of her life. Beneath the appearance of a devoted wife and mother, it was unbelievable that Carenza had been involved in a series of secret sexual relationships with other women in her community. These relationships were cleverly hidden from her family and most of her other friends. It is undeniable that within this secret circle, among the passionate sexual relationships with about half a dozen other middle-aged women in the neighborhood, Carenza Fletcher remained the most striking and alluring. She relished the thrill of these relationships, which gave her a sense of excitement and freedom she couldn't find in her mundane suburban life. Here, Carenza developed a special bond with Edith Hall, a 31-year-old woman who had recently moved into the neighborhood. Since the start of this secret affair, Carenza's friends noticed that she seemed happier than usual. However, every game eventually comes to an end. Secrets have a way of coming to light. The depraved world hidden behind Carenza's facade, fueled by desire and jealousy, led to a horrific tragedy that no one could have foreseen. The sun bathed the neighborhood in a golden glow, and the trees echoed with the cheerful songs of birds. But inside Carenza Fletcher's home, a dark and horrific scene awaited. Carenza's close friend and neighbor, Daisy Lawrence, arrived after a night of unanswered texts and calls, a growing knot of dread tightening in her chest. As Daisy approached the house, she noticed the front door slightly ajar, a small but unsettling detail that sent a wave of anxiety through her. She called out Carenza's name as she cautiously stepped inside, but only silence greeted her. The silence is eerie, broken only by the faint murmur of a TV playing somewhere in the background. Daisy's heart pounded in her chest as she made her way deeper into the house, a sense of foreboding growing with each step. Then, at the base of the staircase, Daisy's worst fears were realized. Carenza lay lifeless, her body contorted in an unnatural position, her light blue nightgown stained with blood from a cut on her lip. The image was so horrifying, so unexpected, that Daisy froze, her mind struggling to process the scene before her. For a moment, time stood still, the horror of the situation pressing down on her like a weight. With shaking hands, Daisy finally managed to dial 911, her voice quivering as she tried to convey the nightmare she had just stumbled upon. The operator's calm, steady voice guided her through the next agonizing minutes. But Daisy's composure was unraveling. She paced back and forth, her eyes never straying from Carenza's motionless body, the reality of the tragedy searing itself into her memory, haunting her with every breath. Within minutes, the air was pierced by the wail of sirens as emergency responders converged on Carenza Fletcher's home. The once serene morning in Gilbert, Arizona, was shattered by the harsh reality unfolding inside the house. Daisy Lawrence, Carenza's close friend, stood trembling as paramedics rushed past her, their urgency a stark contrast to the eerie stillness within the home. She stepped back, her body shaking uncontrollably as she watched them attend to Carenza, a sliver of hope flickering in her mind. But that hope was quickly extinguished. The paramedics' grim expressions told the story before any words were spoken. Carenza was gone. The confirmation of Carenza's death hit Daisy like a freight train, the finality of it too much to bear. Her legs gave way beneath her, and she collapsed into a chair, tears streaming uncontrollably down her face. The vibrant woman she had known, the friend she had shared countless memories with, was now a lifeless figure at the base of the stairs. The tragedy of Carenza Fletcher's death was just beginning to unfold, and with it, the unraveling of a seemingly perfect life that would soon send shockwaves through the entire community. At around 8:45 a.m., mere minutes after Daisy's frantic 911 call, the Gilbert Police Department arrived on the scene. Leading the investigation was Detective Iris Miller, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for her sharp instincts, accompanied by Officer John Carson, a young patrolman still finding his feet in the force. As they entered the house, the unsettling sight that greeted them only deepened the sense of dread. Carenza's body, twisted and contorted, lay at the bottom of the staircase, her head turned awkwardly to the side. The scene was disturbingly calm, a chilling juxtaposition to the violence that must have occurred. Detective Miller immediately took control, her mind racing as she began to piece together the puzzle before her. She instructed Officer Carson to secure the scene, ensuring no one else would disturb the evidence. The staircase, carpeted and bordered by beige walls, showed no signs of struggle. The pool of blood beneath Carenza's head was small, almost insignificant in size. Yet it was enough to convey the tragedy that had taken place. As Miller meticulously examined the area, she noted several unsettling details. Carenza's phone was found midway down the stairs, its screen shattered, a clue that something had gone terribly wrong. But it was the position of Carenza's body that raised the most alarm. It didn't align with the typical pattern of an accidental fall. Something was off. The angle at which she landed too unnatural, too deliberate. The nightgown she wore was torn slightly at the hem, but there were no visible signs of a struggle, no indication of a fight. And yet, Miller's instincts screamed that this was no ordinary accident. With the paramedics stepping back, having done all they could, the focus now shifted entirely to the investigation. Detective Miller, her mind sharp and alert, knew that every detail would be crucial in uncovering the truth behind Carenza Fletcher's tragic death. The questions loomed large. Was it a mere accident, or had something far more sinister taken place in this seemingly idyllic suburban home? The answers lay hidden in the subtle clues scattered throughout the scene, waiting for a skilled investigator to bring them to light. The community, still blissfully unaware of the darkness creeping into their midst, would soon find themselves entangled in a mystery that would challenge their perceptions of safety and trust. Detective Iris Miller stood in the dimly lit hallway, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the scene. Carenza Fletcher's death, which at first glance might have been written off as a tragic accident, was gnawing at her instincts. The position of the body, the lack of defensive wounds, and the unsettling stillness in the house, all of it felt wrong, like puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit. Determined to uncover the truth, Miller ordered a full forensic sweep of the house. Every inch of the scene would be examined, and no detail would be overlooked. The forensic team moved methodically, spraying luminol to detect hidden traces of blood, while fingerprint powder was carefully dusted on the stair railings and nearby surfaces. The house, once a vibrant home, now felt like a silent witness to a dark secret. As the blue glow of luminol illuminated the room, Miller's unease only grew. Something sinister had happened here, something far more complex than a simple fall down the stairs. With the preliminary sweep complete, Miller knew the investigation had to move beyond the physical evidence. The focus now shifted to those closest to Carenza, starting with her husband and friends. Daisy Lawrence, a 39-year-old neighbor known for her nurturing and caring nature, was the first on Miller's list. Daisy and Carenza had been inseparable, often seen together at local hangouts like Panera Bread, their children frequently playing together. But as the detectives began to peel back the layers of Carenza's life, they discovered a relationship between Daisy and Carenza that was anything but ordinary. In the sterile confines of the interrogation room, Daisy sat across from Detective Miller, her hands trembling slightly as she fidgeted with a tissue. She appeared nervous but cooperative, her eyes darting around the room as she spoke. Initially, Daisy recounted her friendship with Carenza in typical terms: shared activities, mutual support, a close bond developed over the years. But Miller, with her seasoned instincts, sensed there was more to the story. As the questioning intensified, the cracks in Daisy's facade began to show. Under the weight of the interrogation, Daisy finally broke down, admitting to a secret that would stun the detectives. She and Carenza had been involved in a passionate, clandestine sexual relationship for several months. The confession hung heavy in the room, changing the entire course of the investigation. Daisy described the affair as intense but complicated, revealing that Carenza had sought solace and excitement in their relationship, which she hadn't found in her marriage. Carenza had confided in Daisy, saying that the affair made her feel like a Disney princess. But this fairy tale had taken a dark turn. Daisy's voice wavered as she explained how Carenza had started to distance herself, becoming increasingly elusive. The reason soon became clear. Carenza had met someone new, Edith Hall, a recently arrived neighbor. The news had devastated Daisy, sparking feelings of jealousy and betrayal. She admitted that she and Carenza had argued heatedly, especially after she caught Carenza and Edith in a compromising position in her daughter's bed, just days before Carenza's death. The revelation of this love triangle added a volatile new element to the case. Jealousy, often a potent motive, now loomed large over the investigation. Despite Daisy's emotional state and clear distress over Carenza's new relationship, she vehemently denied any involvement in Carenza's death. According to Daisy, their argument had been intense but not physical. She claimed to have left Carenza's house that night, upset but never imagining it would be the last time she saw her friend alive. While Daisy's confession provided crucial insight, it also left detectives with more questions than answers. Her jealousy was palpable, and her connection to Carenza now seemed more complex than ever. However, without concrete evidence tying Daisy directly to Carenza's death, the investigation could not conclude with an arrest. The case was far from over, and as the detectives dug deeper into the tangled web of Carenza Fletcher's relationships, they knew the truth, whatever it was, would not easily come to light. Edith Hall, 31, was the next person on the police's radar. She had only recently moved to Gilbert from Atlanta, Georgia, 6 months before Carenza Fletcher's death. Outwardly, Edith was the picture of professionalism, a polished real estate agent with a sharp mind and a poised demeanor. Her arrival in the neighborhood hadn't gone unnoticed, sparking curiosity among the local moms, particularly when she quickly formed a close bond with Carenza Fletcher. The two women were often seen together, sharing whispered conversations over coffee at the local Starbucks, raising eyebrows and fueling whispers that their connection might be more than just platonic. When Detective Iris Miller sat down with Edith, the woman maintained an air of calm composure, her exterior almost too controlled. But beneath that calm, Miller detected a flicker of tension, a subtle crack in the facade. Initially, Edith downplayed her relationship with Carenza, framing it as a simple friendship built on shared interests and neighborhood activities. But as Miller pressed her, the truth began to surface. Edith reluctantly admitted that their relationship had crossed into something far more intimate. She described Carenza as charming, fun, but also very persistent, a woman who had pursued her with determination. According to Edith, it was Carenza who initiated their affair, sending provocative messages and suggesting they explore a relationship that went beyond your wildest dreams. Though hesitant at first, aware of Carenza's marital status, Edith eventually succumbed to the thrill of their secret. Despite the closeness they shared, Edith was adamant that she had no reason to harm Carenza. She revealed that Carenza had recently started expressing deeper feelings for her, even hinting at the possibility of leaving her husband Edric to be with her. But this newfound level of commitment unsettled Edith. She was still finding her footing in the neighborhood and was dealing with her own marital issues. Entangling herself in a scandal was the last thing she wanted. As the conversation turned to the night of Carenza's death, Edith's composure began to waver. She claimed she was at home with her husband, but there was a quiver in her voice that didn't escape Miller's notice. Text messages retrieved from Carenza's phone showed that the two had been in contact late into the night, with some of the exchanges hinting at tension between them. To complicate matters, there were explicit videos of the two together, videos that Edith had carelessly shared with other neighborhood moms, flaunting their relationship. Though Edith continued to deny any involvement in Carenza's death, the detectives were left with lingering doubts. The jealousy and unresolved tension in their relationship, coupled with Edith's evasive answers, kept her squarely in the crosshairs of the investigation. More evidence would be needed to either confirm or clear her of suspicion, but one thing was clear: Edith Hall was hiding something. Edric Fletcher, 37, was the third person to fall under the police's scrutiny as the investigation into his wife's death deepened. As Carenza Fletcher's husband, he was an obvious person of interest, but there was more to his story than just proximity. Edric, an insurance agent by profession, was often away on business, a fact that kept him largely out of sight from the neighbors. Those who knew him described Edric as a quiet, somewhat aloof figure, rarely seen at community events, and seemingly uninterested in the social life of the neighborhood. The whispers of his strained marriage were no secret. It was widely known that Edric and Carenza's relationship had been on the rocks for years. When Detective Iris Miller and her team sat down with Edric, his demeanor set off alarm bells. He was stoic, detached, his emotions seemingly locked away behind a cold exterior. This was a man whose wife had just died under suspicious circumstances, yet there was no trace of the expected grief or shock. Instead, Edric spoke of his marriage in terms that were unsettling. "I needed to get away from that awful woman," he confessed during the interview, his words laced with bitterness that made the detectives sit up and take notice. This wasn't the language of a mourning husband. It was something darker, more resentful. Edric claimed ignorance about Carenza's secret life, insisting he had no knowledge of her affairs with other women, including Daisy Lawrence and Edith Hall. The shock he expressed at learning about these relationships seemed genuine, but Miller couldn't shake the feeling that Edric was hiding something. His alibi for the night of Carenza's death placed him in Los Angeles on a business trip, and he provided the names of colleagues who could verify his story. On the surface, it appeared solid, but there was an undercurrent of suspicion that lingered. As the investigation delved deeper, the detectives uncovered potential motives that could point to Edric's involvement. Carenza had inherited a substantial sum of money from her parents, and if their marriage ended in divorce, Edric stood to lose a great deal. Adding to the complexity were rumors of Edric's own infidelities, with whispers of both women and men during his frequent trips. Despite the apparent strength of his alibi, the detectives couldn't dismiss the gnawing doubts about Edric. His cold demeanor, the financial stakes, and the fractured relationship with Carenza all painted a picture that required further examination. The investigation was far from over, and Edric Fletcher remained squarely in the crosshairs as Detective Miller and her team sought to uncover the truth behind Carenza's tragic death. On the morning of March 18, 2017, as the cool, overcast skies of Gilbert cast a somber mood over the town, Detective Iris Miller received a call that would change the course of her investigation into Carenza Fletcher's death. For days, the case had seemed shrouded in mystery, with too many questions and not enough answers. But that morning, the forensic team had uncovered something that had been missed in the initial sweep of Carenza's home, a subtle yet telling detail that would crack the case wide open. The new evidence was a faint scuff mark on the wall near the bottom of the stairs, where Carenza's lifeless body had been found. The mark was almost imperceptible, blending in with the surroundings, but it was enough to raise suspicions. Forensic experts, utilizing advanced 3D imaging techniques, analyzed the mark and concluded that it was consistent with the sole of a shoe. This revelation suggested that Carenza might not have simply fallen down the stairs, but rather she might have been pushed or tripped, a chilling indication of foul play. This discovery marked a pivotal turning point in the investigation. What had initially seemed like a tragic accident now bore the unmistakable signs of a struggle. Detective Miller, her instincts sharpened, knew it was time to revisit the crime scene with a renewed sense of purpose. The forensic team meticulously combed through the area once more, this time finding traces of skin cells under Carenza's fingernails. These were sent to the lab for DNA analysis, further solidifying the theory that Carenza had fought back against her attacker in her final moments. Armed with this new evidence, Detective Miller and her team intensified their focus on the three primary suspects: Daisy Lawrence, Edith Hall, and Edric Fletcher. Each of them was brought back in for further questioning, but this time the detectives were not just searching for inconsistencies, they were closing in on the truth. The scuff mark and the DNA under Carenza's nails painted a vivid picture of a struggle, hinting that the fatal fall was anything but accidental. As Miller scrutinized the text messages found on Carenza's phone, another piece of the puzzle began to fall into place. The messages between Carenza, Daisy, and Edith revealed underlying tensions, particularly between Carenza and Daisy. Jealousy, always a dangerous emotion, seemed to have simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. The texts hinted at recent arguments, laced with unspoken threats and unresolved feelings. Combined with the physical evidence, these digital traces pointed to a confrontation that likely ended in tragedy. By March 20, 2017, the investigation took a decisive and damning turn. The DNA analysis from the skin cells found under Carenza's fingernails came back with a match: Daisy Lawrence. This critical piece of evidence, coupled with the scuff mark on the wall, led Detective Miller to a grim conclusion. Carenza's death was no accident. It was murder. Daisy Lawrence, a 39-year-old stay-at-home mom who was once known for her nurturing and caring nature, was now the prime suspect. Beneath her calm and collected exterior, it seemed, lay deep insecurities and a fear of abandonment. Carenza Fletcher had been the center of her world, and their passionate secret relationship had been fraught with jealousy and tension. But when Carenza began a new affair with their neighbor, Edith Hall, Daisy's insecurities spiraled into something far more dangerous. Feeling threatened and betrayed, Daisy's emotions boiled over, culminating in a deadly confrontation that left Carenza dead at the bottom of the stairs. The truth, now uncovered, painted a picture of a love triangle gone horribly wrong, with devastating consequences. On the fateful night of March 15, 2017, the tension between Carenza Fletcher and Daisy Lawrence reached a boiling point. Daisy, consumed by jealousy, had walked in on Carenza and Edith Hall in a compromising position. The confrontation that followed was explosive, emotions flaring as Daisy confronted Carenza. What started as a heated argument quickly spiraled out of control. In a desperate and jealous rage, Daisy pushed Carenza. The force of the shove sent Carenza tumbling down the stairs, her head striking the wall as she fell. The scuff mark on the wall, later discovered by detectives, was a silent witness to Carenza's desperate attempt to regain her balance. But it was too late. Carenza's body lay motionless at the bottom of the stairs. Panicked and overcome with fear, Daisy fled the scene, hoping the tragic fall would be mistaken for an accident. But the evidence left behind told a different story. The scratches on Daisy's hands, matched to the DNA under Carenza's nails, painted a damning picture of a struggle that ended in tragedy. On the morning of March 21, 2017, police arrived at Daisy's home to arrest her for Carenza's murder. Shocked and trembling, Daisy offered no resistance, her face a mask of disbelief as the reality of her actions finally sank in. "I never meant to hurt Carenza. I just wanted her back," she muttered as she was led away in handcuffs. The arrest sent ripples of shock through the neighborhood, leaving Carenza's family, especially her husband Edric, grappling with a grief compounded by the senselessness of her death. As the trial commenced in October 2017, the courtroom overflowed with spectators, each eager to witness the unfolding of justice. The prosecution, led by the tenacious Assistant District Attorney Paul Palmer, argued that Daisy's actions were driven by intense jealousy. The physical evidence, the scuff mark, the DNA under Carenza's nails, was presented as proof of a deliberate act of violence. In contrast, the defense, spearheaded by Public Defender Jocasta Reed, painted a different picture. Daisy, she argued, had acted in a moment of overwhelming emotion, not premeditation. She was a woman deeply in love, whose actions were the tragic result of losing control. Reed urged the jury to consider Daisy's remorse and her previously clean record. As Carenza's family sat through the trial, their faces etched with grief, the true cost of this tragedy became painfully clear. Edric Fletcher, Carenza's husband, fought back tears as the details of her final moments were recounted, each revelation deepening the loss felt by all who loved her. The trial was not just about justice for Carenza, but also a stark reminder of the human cost of jealousy and uncontrolled emotion. After days of intense testimony and evidence, the jury needed only a few hours to decide Daisy Lawrence's fate. On November 3, 2017, the verdict was delivered, guilty of second-degree murder. The judge handed down a 20-year prison sentence, a decision that left many in the courtroom feeling it fell short of justice given the tragic circumstances. While the verdict brought a sense of closure to Carenza Fletcher's grieving family, the wound of her loss was far from healed. For Daisy, the sentence marked the beginning of a long, solitary journey, a time for reflection on the jealousy that had led her to such a devastating act. The trial and its outcome left an indelible mark on the Gilbert community, serving as a sobering reminder of how swiftly love can spiral into tragedy. As the trial concluded, life in Gilbert began to return to its usual rhythm, but the shadow of Carenza's death lingered. Edric Fletcher, now a single parent, faced the daunting task of rebuilding his life. His focus shifted to caring for his children, who were struggling to navigate life without their mother. Edric, once a quiet presence, grew even more reserved, finding solace only in his work and in the company of his children. Meanwhile, Daisy Lawrence began her 20-year sentence at the Arizona Women's Correctional Facility, where her days were filled with isolation and introspection. The vibrant, once active community member was now confined to a life behind bars, her story widely covered by local news and serving as a cautionary tale about the destructive power of unchecked jealousy. As for Edith Hall, the new neighbor who had also been under suspicion, the end of the trial brought a mix of relief and lingering anxiety. She decided to leave Gilbert shortly after the verdict, hoping to start anew in a place untainted by the past year's events. Though cleared of any wrongdoing, her reputation had been irreparably damaged, and she knew it was best to leave the painful memories behind. From the tragedy of Carenza Fletcher, we learn a profound lesson about the consequences of jealousy and uncontrolled emotions. Love and friendship are precious relationships. But when negative emotions like jealousy and insecurity take control, they can become triggers for regrettable actions. This case serves as a powerful reminder that we must control our emotions and seek to resolve conflicts calmly and peacefully, avoiding the path of destruction that negative feelings can lead us down. Additionally, the case underscores the importance of honesty and communication in relationships. If there had been openness and sincerity from the beginning, this tragedy might have been avoided. We should always remember that the truth, no matter how difficult, is far better than hiding it or lying, which only brings more pain. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more meaningful stories. Thank you for watching.